Hey everybody, it's Armin. So today, this is going to be a first for me. I haven't done hood louvers on an ND Miata, but we have this turbo ND sitting over there. And I told the customer, well, hood louvers are a good idea because you have a turbo. So we're going to be installing a set today. I have the template here, I have the louvers themselves. We're going to be just going over the whole thing. So we're just going to dive right into it. First thing is I do need to clean it off. It is covered in a light layer of pollen, and we want to make sure we have a clean surface in order to put the sticker onto. Okay, that's nice and clean now. So we know we have a clean surface that we can start putting our template on. So let's take the template out, let's take a look. So it says that we need to have this starting at 9.5 inches from the front edge. Me lo pasas la cinta métrica, porfa. El otro, chiquita, sí, esta. I use this one because it can go around the contours very easily and you don't really risk scratching up paint. So we're going to take this and we're going to sit it here. And we see that 9.5 is about here. We'll take a piece of tape. I'm going to go ahead and put that across here. Next I have to figure out where center is. Okay, so we put down the piece of tape. We're going to use our tape measure, and we don't know where center is in the hood, so we're just going to lay this down here, take our pen and mark 9.5 here. I want to move it over. I'm going to mark 9.5 here. We just want to make sure that we have an idea. Obviously, we have a reasonable idea where center should be. This part doesn't need to be absolutely perfect because we're going to recheck it several times. Okay, so approximately here. Now, as far as centering goes, once again, we use this type of tape measure. We can kind of get an idea of where we are across the contour of the hood. So if we go across the contour of the hood like this, you can see we're about 52.5 inches across here. So 52.5 divided by 2 is 26.25. So here's our center mark. So there's our true center mark. All right, I'll triple check. That's 9.5. That's 9.5. Okay. Me lo pasas las tijeras, por favor. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut on the template here the section where the 9.5 actually is marked. And I'm just going to give myself access. On the NC hoods and the NA and NB hood, well, on the NC hood specifically, it's not as easy to find center because the hood is rounded. This, it's a little more square, so it's a little easier to find out. So you actually shouldn't have as much trouble trying to find dead center. So what I'm going to do now is drop the plans on the ground. So I'd like to find the actual center of these plans. So using my tape, let's see if we can find the center of this just to verify that I'm lining up center on center. If you've seen my other video, you know I like to measure and check everything just because I don't want to trust necessarily that the template is set for center as it is. So this is 31, that means my center is, hold on, so it's 31. A little past 31, but puts me, I have a little trouble getting this thing flat here. Close to 31.25, so 31.25, and the center is going to be at like 15.75-ish. Well, looks like the arrow is dead on. Cool. So Singular Motorsports apparently put that arrow dead on the middle where it should be. So this will mean we set this up right there. So I'm going to go ahead and put a piece of tape. Get that thing centered out. Okay, it's lined up and it's taped down. So this gives us a little bit of room to be able to rotate it still. So so we can start figuring out our left and our right orientations. So, uh-oh, it's moving on me. Stay. So what I'd like to do next, let's see. A good idea here seems to be, since we do have some pretty straight edges here, we can measure the center point at the top of the paper and get a center there so it sits correctly this way. Let's see about doing that. For grins, let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and get some tape down here. I'm gonna go ahead and put some tape down in order to stop this from moving around as much. With any luck, I'm kind of close. So now that we have this like that, let's take our tape measure and see where we're looking here. You know, these NDs have these points. Why don't we measure from the corners here to the points and see if they're kind of close? That'll let us know if we're at least close to where we're going. Dead on 12 inches. $11 3/4. Okay, so I'm a little bit crooked. So let's move this just a little bit. This part of the process is iterative. We're gonna have to check several times just to make sure. We've got 11 7/8 now. I got 11 7/8. I guess that works. So assuming this is pretty straightened out, we should be in the center here now. So if we wanted to triple check, what I would do is I would say we need to find the center of the top of the paper and then measure that compared to the width here. Let's go ahead and do that just for grins here, because again, I like to be as thorough as possible. So the width of this paper, or the width of the template rather, looks like it comes in at 39 inches. So if we're trying to measure the center of that, 39 divided by 2 is going to be 19 and a half. So at our 19 and a half marker, there we are. A little square there. Okay. Now for the full width of the hood, this is going to be tricky because the hood is not flat here. But if we just pull tension across it, then we should be able to center it. So my marker currently sits at 28. And that is, we're almost 56 inches at the width of the hood. So that's pretty close. I need to move it just slightly to the left, if anything. So I'm just gonna give it a slight movement to the left. That was aggressive. Tape moved on me. Now we get to remeasure everything. I know this is the slow portion of the video where it's grueling, slow, iterative information. Alright, now that I'm pulling this tight on this spot, it's showing, let's see, it's 55 and 3/4-ish, so looks like we're actually dead on now. Let me remeasure these corners. So I got 11 7/8. 11 7/8. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and pin this thing down. Make sure it doesn't move. Stay there. Okay, anyone who has ever done vinyl, you'll know how this next part goes. What we're going to do is we're going to lift up half of this. So we're secured here, we're secured here. We're going to pick up this. We're going to fold this up like that. We need to peel away our material. And we need to cut away this. This doesn't need to be precise, but obviously I'm trying not to hurt the hood. Have one. So I've got some soapy water here. Just your regular old Dawn dish soap and water. We're going to spray this down. This allows us to float the template. And then we'll be able to triple check ourselves and have a little bit of freedom to move it around. Okay. Tape. Spray more. So now there's soapy water everywhere. This tape is not going to hold on to anything. So you got soapy water all over the place. Let's try to get some of that out of here. Not a lot of it. We just need to get some of it out. Okay. Still going to be able to move around. I'm going to remeasure, make sure that we're still at about 9.5 inches. Still 9.5 inches. Still 11 3/4. Still 11 3/4. Looks like it hasn't moved. So now what I need to do is take a credit card. ¿Me lo pasas una tarjeta? Como... Okay. So we're going to use typical method, credit card. We're just going to push all of this soapy water out of here and get this to stick down. So the template is flat, so we will have probably a couple of small creases. And that's fine. We're not doing a vinyl wrap here, otherwise you would get in here with heat and you'd want to get them to smooth out. But we're just doing this as a template. This will come off after we're done cutting. So my objective here is just to get the soap out so this sticks to the hood. This part of the video brought to you by Costco. pasa esta valla, por favor? Looks like I put maybe a bit too much soapy water. So after enough of this, should be able to stick down. I may need to go back and do a little bit of drying. It seems like I've used a lot of soapy water. This usually isn't as much of a problem when doing the other hoods, so it could be part of the design with the ND hood. It's not letting the soapy water get out from under there as easily. I got a lot of contours I'm working with because the hood kind of goes in here and then up in the center. Also, I mean, I'm no expert at vinyl wrapping. I'm just good at... All right, we now have our template in place. It's probably going to dry still a little bit more. There's some bubbles here in the middle. We're going to move over into a better lighted location, also away from engine parts so I don't throw metal flakes everywhere. Don't hit any of that ending up the motor. So we'll go ahead and commence with our standard cutting procedure. So let's go over all the tools that we're going to be using today. Obviously, I'm already late in the process here, but my camera audio decided not to record earlier. So let's go over all the tools that we're using in order to take care of this whole process. I'll be wearing safety glasses for the entire cutting process, as well as ear protection because our cutting devices are very loud. And it is very important that you do wear the eye protection and ear protection just because you're going to be slinging crap everywhere, and also it's going to be sustained loud noises for probably several hours while you're cutting the front and the back. So what I have here are my pencil grinder. This is your typical Amazon for $40, or I believe Harbor Freight now sells these. It's just a typical pencil grinder with an 1/8 inch arbor on it. It's completely air powered. It's very strong, and the great thing is compared to the electric powered Dremels, these don't heat up in your hand. They actually get cold because it's air flowing through a piece of aluminum. So I like these a lot. And also you can use it as sort of an air gun, as you'll see me use throughout the process. I can hold the rear end of it around and it'll push the dust particles. For the cutting wheels, I'm using Dremel Easy Locks. These are quickly, easily changed out, and they're very affordable, as well as they're very thin cut, which is very important. I use this for all of my precision cuts. So everything on the front side is done with this. Everything on the back side just about is done with the next device. So the next device I'm using, this is a newer tool I recently got. I haven't used this one on a hood before, but it is phenomenal. So normally I would use a 3-inch air cutoff tool. This is a 3-inch electric cutoff tool. The cool thing about this is that it has more torque, but it also has an electric brake. So you can, when you kick it on, it immediately shuts back off when you let go of the trigger. It also can go either direction, which is nice for throwing your material away from you. This is awesome. So I did go through one whole bit doing this hood, but I only cut the backside with it because it is a very gross cut device. It cuts aggressively and it cuts kind of messily. So again, for precision cuts in the front, I use the little discs. For the big cuts in the backside, I use that one. And then I did have to do a little bit with the small cutoff wheel on the backside, but you'll see that in a bit. For finishing everything up, I have a 1/4 inch arbor air die grinder, and I'm using specific aluminum bits. If you look at aluminum bits, they have very large flutes on them. I believe these are called flutes. They have very large teeth on them, and the difference between these and the steel ones will end up melting the aluminum and it'll get stuck to it, so it won't cut at all. The aluminum one is more like it chips it away, so you'll see me making a lot of chips. And I use this to go back and round my edges, as well as smooth out the burrs. Now for final deburring, I do go back with your typical rasp tool. Just very lightly go along and smooth all these out so we don't damage the paint, because using this air die grinder tool, it does eliminate a lot of material at a time. So if you're not careful, you can end up having more cut than you need instead of just refining the cut that you made. This is very easy. It takes care of very light burrs. I wanted to make sure that everything is hand-friendly, that even if anyone has to handle this at a future date, they won't cut themselves. That's important. Then let's see. I use your typical punch and hammer in order to make all of the holes, along with some paint pen. Let's see. Regular old drill bits. Oh, and then finally, this isn't what you're supposed to use this for. This is a countersink bit. This is for woodworking. But I have a countersink bit that I use for cleaning up all of these metal holes. That way we don't have the little pieces from drilling sticking out, and it's real easy to clean. You just put it on the drill and it'll cut that right out. Other than that, I'm just using you know, your typical air gun, and well, the rest is technique. So I hope that you guys are able to accomplish all this just like I am. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching this video. All right, so at this point we've finished everything on the front side, just for the bulk cuts. I need to smooth out my edges and smooth all that off, but I'd like to take care of the backside cuts. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and dust this thing off. We're gonna put down some moving blankets, flip it over, cut the backside to match, and then we'll worry about smoothing out both the top and the bottom cuts. As you saw, I really tried to take my time, make sure all these cuts were as smooth as possible. I use I guess a refined technique that I've got over the years. Just take it really slow, both hands in full control at all times to give it the least possibility of jumping. And I always cut from right to left because the spinning wheel is spinning this way. I want to make sure it is not capable of running ahead very easily. And then always I'm doing 2 and 3 passes to make sure I get it with moving as slow as possible, just so, again, the cutting wheel does all the work and I'm not trying to push it into the material. For the corners, since the corners are rounded, what I'm doing is I'm cutting away the material sort of very slowly. I don't do an exact arc. I cut back from the material, so these edges are not fully cut yet, and I cut it at an angle, and then I just sort of hit the material so it breaks, and I'll go back and I'll smooth it so it'll be a nice radius turn when I go back with the smoothing piece. So like I said, the next section we're going to clean it off, flip it over. All right, so we've got it flipped over now, and we got the insulation removed. So we have a decent view of where the cut is on the front side here. And what I'm gonna try to do is make sure that whatever cuts I make, they're not only larger than that, but if I do run into any of these circles, I wanna make sure that I don't leave sharp edges. It seems like this design might be a little bit easier than on the NCs. The NCs have a bunch of holes in places that make it to where you have to make the cuts very oversized just to avoid having sharp edges. So this may be an iterative process. It usually is, because I don't want to just cut a giant section out of the hood and extremely compromise the structure. I want to try and make a minimal amount of cut so that we have great airflow but also maintain as much structure as possible. So let's see how this turns out. So as of now, we've finished up all of the cutting and all of the smoothing of the edges. After I do take the template off, I will be double checking that the front face is deburred nicely and smoothed off. But for the most part, everything is smoothed out already. What I was doing is I was going along and making sure that we had no burrs on the top surface nor the bottom surface of both the skin and the substructure of the hood. That way no one can cut themselves. And I was also just making it look a little bit nicer. I'll go back later and I'll wipe off the backside of any additional paint markers that are still present. So now what we need to do is we need to punch our holes where we're going to be mounting this to. And what we'll do is we'll flip it back over after we have those first 2 holes mounted, and we will stick 2 rivets in and then match drill the remainder of them. All right, at this point, obviously you saw we drilled the holes out, and then I used the little deburr tool to deburr all the holes so they're nice and clean. Everything is deburred. I just cut up the U-channel molding around the edges. One of the things that's very important when you do the U-channel molding is to make sure you push it together, because when this gets heat treated, it'll start shrinking a little bit, and then we notice that these start pulling away from the corners. So I make sure that I sort of cinch it together, and it's essentially oversized. so that way whenever this does shrink, it won't make as much of an effect. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go under these edges, I'm going to stick some super glue just to make sure it stays in position during the installation. I have noticed this before. A couple of the rivets on some of the designs are really close to where the U-channel molding is, so it may be beneficial to go back and snip these a little bit. That way you don't have problems with getting the rivets to go into these slots. Other than that, all of our holes are drilled and we're ready to put the vents in after we bend them. Alright, so that's pretty much the video. We're going to install this on the car, make a couple of adjustments to the louvers. But that's kind of it. Let me show you guys how it came out. That's how the front came out. And this is how the back came out. Thanks for watching.